Have you already met Nelson Mandela?
No. I left South Africa 3 weeks before he was released. And we didn't know he was going to be released, so I'm now on international tour. But he met with the Musicians Alliance. The Musician Alliance is an organisation which I helped form in 1986 of all the progressive musicians who are fighting against the party. There are many members. And I'm an executive member of the committee.
Where did you used to live when you were a child?
I used to live in Rhodesia, which is now called Zimbabwe. I lived there from 1954 till about 1960. And then my mother married a South African, a journalist, and we moved to Johannesburg. And when I was 9, we moved to Zambia. And I went to school in Zambia for 2 years. And then when I was 11, we came back to Johannesburg. And then I lived in Johannesburg all the time since then.
Why are you interested in Zulu music and in Zulu dances?
Basically, I think because when I first heard and I first saw them, they had a very powerful message, and I wanted to understand. I knew that something was being communicated, but I didn't know what. So I wanted to discover what was being communicated and what was being said by the dance and by the music.
Why do you plead the cause of the anti-apartheid?
What I must say is that when I began, I wasn't political, because when I began to play the music and to dance, I did it because I loved the dance and I loved the music. I did it for the music and for the dancing. But in the country that I lived, white people were not allowed to go into black areas, and black people were not allowed to come into white areas without permission from the government. I was too young to get permission, because you had to be over the age of 16 or 18 years old, and I was 14 or 15. So when I went into the black areas, I was first arrested when I was 15 years old by the police. They thought they were protecting me. So they took me out of the black area and they took me to my mother and said, we found your son in a very dangerous place and it's illegal. And I explained to my mother that I'd been dancing with these people and my friends now for some 6 months or 8 months. And she was very worried. She didn't know what to do. But she was also a singer, so she understood the love for music. And later on, when I kept on going back into the black areas, and not only in the urban areas, but into the tribal areas, into the rural areas, I got into more and more trouble. So politics found me. I didn't find politics. Politics discovered me. And as I got older, I started to become more angry, because I didn't understand why I couldn't be with people. And I didn't understand why I was being made into a criminal just because I wanted to play music and to be with people of a different race. So as things went on, I became more aware of the political situation. But it took me a long time, because I was still very much involved with culture. I wanted to know more about the language, about the music, about stick fighting, about dancing, about all the different things that go with the Zulu culture. And slowly I became more and more involved in politics.
What do you think of the liberation of Nelson Mandela?
I think it's a very important event. I think it's the beginning of a move towards helping all the people in South Africa understand each other and to help them to find a way to live together.
And what do you think about him?
I think that he's a very important symbol for the idea of a single South Africa, where every citizen has the same rights.
Have you already met Nelson Mandela?
No. I left South Africa 2 weeks before, or 3 weeks before he was released. And we didn't know he was going to be released, so I'm now on an international tour. But he met with the Musicians Alliance. The Musicians Alliance is an organization which I helped form in 1986 of all the progressive musicians who are fighting against apartheid. And there are many, many members. And I'm an executive member of the committee. And he met with the Alliance in South Africa while I was overseas, so it was terrible for me.
Do you agree with Mrs. Thatcher, who wants to lift sanctions?
I think that the issue of sanctions is a very delicate issue at the moment, because once the South African government begins to negotiate, and once a proper constitution is developed, then sanctions will have to be lifted. I think that at the moment the European Economic Community has lifted academic and cultural sanctions, but still keeps the economic sanctions. Why? Because we're not sure whether this is a trick by the government to allow everybody to come out of jail and then not to do anything. So the idea to keep sanctions is simply to say, okay, let's see if things are really going to develop in the way they should.
Do you trust President de Klerk?
I think that if you look at his political career, he's never been anybody who did something dramatic. He's always been what we call a fence sitter, somebody who sits in the middle and then gets to see what most people think, and then he goes with the majority in the party. This is the first time in his history as a politician that he's done something like this. It's not normal for his kind of personality, for his character. But what he has done is been very courageous. And it's something which I think if he continues, he will be an incredibly important man in the history of South Africa.
Have you already met him?
No.
Do you think the young whites are changing their minds concerning apartheid?
Yes, I think that there's a new generation of young people, young school children, who are different to us. When I grew up in the 1960s and early 70s, things were very, very segregated. And today, you go to a disco or you go to a function, and there's lots of young black and white people together. And I think that there's it's a small group of young people who are trying to discover a new culture, a new way of living, a new value system, a system of values. Like, what do we believe in? Are we European? Do we accept European culture? Or do we accept African culture? Or do we accept to make our own culture? How do we do that? And so what they experiment with is clothes. They wear Afro-punk clothes. They experiment with language. They experiment with music. They experiment with different cultural styles to try and find a value system that is South African, that belongs to them.
Why do you think that the music world will play an important role in post-apartheid?
Music changes people. That's why. I know myself, when I listened to certain musicians when I was young, they changed me. They sang, they said something to me. And when I heard that, I thought, yeah, that's true. I never thought of that. And I went away and I discussed it with my friends. And I changed my friends. Music can't change groups. Music changes individuals, because music talks to you personally. And that's the thing, that's the important thing. Even when you're in a concert and you see the show, The show is talking to you as an individual. It's addressing you. And when you go away with that feeling, it can change you, or can help you see things in a different way. So music has got a very important role to play in a new South Africa, to help all South Africans understand that we belong to one country.
But as far as you are concerned, I think dance as well plays a very big part in your...
Yes. Dance for me is a personal thing. Dance is a way of saying things that you can't say in language and you can't say in music. Why do people dance? Why? Why do people dance? Why do you think people dance?
Pourquoi les gens dansent-ils?
Huh? People dance because it's a way of saying something that they can't say with their mouths, or they can't say with their dress. Because everything you do says something. Everything you do, the way you dress, the watch you wear, everything is a statement about how you see yourself. You see? So you're speaking without using words. The dance is also a way to speak without using words. And you use rhythm and you use space. And you manipulate the rhythm and the space to say certain things. Because the body is also an expression of how you see yourself. You'll find somebody when they're walking, they might walk like this, and you can see just by the body, they don't even have to say anything. You can see that they are afraid or they're nervous. When you see somebody walking like that, the body says everything. It says, this is the way I feel. I feel good, man. Okay? So the dance is like that. The dance says, it's a very strange way of saying things about yourself, which you sometimes can't say. You'll find a dancer, maybe a go-go dancer, who's really wild on stage, really does. But when you meet her, she's very shy, because the stage is the only place that she can really say what she wants to through her body, because it's easier for her to say it, because she can't say it with her mouth. So in all societies, the dance has been a way to say things that you can't say with language.
But something which is funny to note about dance is in our countries, developed countries and white countries, dance has more or less disappeared. I mean, in the culture itself. Of course, young people dance, but it's not really their culture. It's new, something new.
Well, you have
when in African countries, still something of their life.
Yes, I think if you look at breakdancing is a form of urban tribal dancing, because it has a set of movements which speak very aggressively. The beginning of breakdancing was a way in which the gangs in New York could fight each other without using violence. And if you look at Michael Jackson's video, the Thriller video, he uses that idea where they dance a fight. And the Zulu war dancing is the same thing. It's a fight dance. Okay? It's the same principle. It's so that I don't have to physically fight you. I'll make a symbolic gesture. And in that way, I think that there are many, if you go to a disco floor and you watch some of the dancing there, some of the dancing is very aggressive, because there's a lot of energy, and maybe the person is feeling that he wants to say to everybody how aggressive he feels, but he can't say it. So the only way he can say this with his body. So those are, I think that in the modern Western culture there will be a development of urban dancing, and there is. I mean, there's lots of styles in South America. I don't know what that style of dance is called.
In South America?
Yeah, there's a style of dance which is also a fight style.
I don't know.
There's two people, they dance together, and they It's like when this one goes forward, the other one goes back. And this one goes forward. It's like if they had a knife and they do all sorts of movements together. And it's like...
Do you think apartheid will come to an end in a few months, in a few years?
I think that the legal... Apartheid is a legal system of racism. That's what apartheid means. Apartheid really means separating the races legally. I think the legal separation of races will come to an end. Apartheid in that sense will come to an end. But I think that racism will continue to exist in the society everywhere in the world because of fear, because of ignorance, because of competition for scarce resources, competition for jobs. And it's very easy for people to rely on a racist explanation to explain why I've lost my job. So I think that the legal aspect of apartheid will be removed from South Africa. I think it's going to take 2 to 5 years.
Will you continue all your life to sing and to fight against apartheid?
It's been an important part of my life. But I've been very careful not to be a political activist. I'm a cultural activist. And what I mean by that is I don't believe that you can change people through political argument or simply through political organization. I believe that you get a deeper change in somebody if you can get them to understand another culture. If I can take you, just say you're afraid, we go to Afghanistan. Say we go to Afghanistan. We don't speak Afghanist language, and we're not Muslims. We're Christians or whatever. And we go there and we see a completely strange culture, right? And we're a little bit afraid. And that fear is where the first element of those people are different. That's where it comes in. They're different. They look different. They dress different. They talk different. They worship a different God. That's where the first problem arises. So if I were to take you then and first to let you eat some of the food, to introduce you to a family, sit down, and then to put on the clothes, even if you don't like it, but to at least see that it's human. And then even if you don't like some of the food, but what's happened is that as you start to experiment with that culture, it starts to become a part of you in a funny way. You see, with my brain, I can stop everything. Intellectually, I can stop everything. But I can't stop experience. I can't stop a taste. If I eat the food, I can't stop it, and the food's inside me. When I wear something, I can't stop the feeling of wearing that thing. However much I want to in my brain, I can't stop feeling. Feeling can subvert me. So it's through culture, because culture is about experience. If I can get you to experience, you know, in South Africa, we had a lot of right-wing people who would come to the show, my shows, to shout insults. Okay? And I used to shout back at them from the stage. They would insult me, and I'd insult them back. And everybody would laugh, ha, 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 ha. You see, it's funny. But what would happen is I would continue. And what they would say to me is that I'm taking Western culture and I'm mixing it with black culture and I'm making a bastard culture, right? And what would happen is that however much they hated what I was doing, with their eyes, they saw me dancing with a black man. And however much they didn't want to see it, they saw it. And they experienced an image which was impossible for them. So however much intellectually they fought against what I was doing, what they saw and what they heard, they can't fight against because it's experience. So they took away the experience with them, and they took away an image. And that is the only way that you can change people, because that is the way that they can feel that it's not so bad. It's not so bad to be with somebody. It's not so bad to speak their language, or to dance a dance, or to eat the food, or to be with them, or to live with them, or to marry them, or to love them. You see, that's the beginning. So I prefer to work with culture, not with politics, because politics tends to be very much more to do with arguments, to do with philosophy, with organization and political action. I prefer to try and deal with the racial issues through culture.
How do you see the future of your son in South Africa?
You see, South Africa is a very important country in the world, because the world, we know that the world is coming together now. We know we're going to have, in 20 years or 30 years, we're going to have a single planetary civilization of culture. But if we're going to have such a civilization, we have to have a common image of man. You see? Now, if I come from the East and I'm a Buddhist, I have another image of man. If I come from Iran, I'm a Muslim, I have another image of man. If I am from the West, I'm Christian, I have an image of man, an idea of what man is, a religious image, say. Now, if we are to make an agreement to say that we want human rights for everybody, for the world, if we are a world society, how can we have human rights for everybody if we don't agree what man is? If we have a different image of what man is, we can't agree, right? You understand? So South Africa is important for the world, because in South Africa we are trying to make a new image of man, which the world can also look at and say, yes, that's something that it's moving towards what we want, how the world needs. And because South Africa is being forced now, in a very short time, to solve its problems, in a funny way, we are advanced more than the world. And because we are being advanced, we might even be able to give some models for some of the problems that the world is still going to face. Because when the East and the West meet, there's going to be cultural problems, problems of language, problems of understanding. And all those things will, already in South Africa, we have Muslims, we have Hindus, we have Jews, we have Christians, we have all the religions. Traditional, tribal societies, we have first world culture, third world culture, we have urban, we have rural, we have ecological problems, we have language problems, we have racial problems, we have all the problems in the world in South Africa in a small way. So when I continue to sing, all my new songs will be about this new image of man. What is this new image of man? How are we moving towards this new image of man? So, for me, it's something that I've been doing for a long time. It's trying to understand, are we really different? Or are we really the same? If our cultures are different, how different does that make us? And are the different cultures just an expression, different ways of solving the same problems? You know, we get married. I got married in a Western tradition, and then I got married in a Zulu tradition. I had 2 marriages. I married my wife twice. And on the new album, I wrote a song called Moliva. And the song is about my marriage, my Zulu marriage. Now, in there, what is a marriage? A marriage means that a man and a woman come together to formalize their relationship, to bring the families together, and to allow the children to be legal. All right? But in all societies, it doesn't matter where you come from, you have the same problems. You have problems with bringing the families together, on how to make the marriage pure, and to make the people believe that when they get married it's serious, that they must keep the marriage bond and the vows and all the pressures. So you have, all cultures have got marriage, but they find different ways to reinforce and to emphasize certain things. And in the Zulu marriage, it was wonderful for me because there's certain things in that marriage, that kind of marriage, which is really great, it's wonderful. It emphasizes things that the Western marriage doesn't emphasize. And the Western marriage emphasizes things that the Zulu marriage doesn't emphasize. But cultures don't have complete solutions. No culture, not one culture, has a complete answer to a human problem. They all have half answers, not complete. All the different cultures are just different attempts and different ways of dealing with the same problem in a different way. But nobody's discovered the big solution or the big answer. So when I got married, my wife had to learn to dance, first of all. And she had to learn to sing. And she had to sing songs which the first songs that she sang in public with 3,000 people standing in a big football field outside. And she was dressed up in all the traditional stuff. And she had 30 young girls with her. And she had to learn to do the dance and to sing. She had a little shield here and a big knife in the one hand. And a shield on the other hand. And the first song that she sung was, she insulted me. She says, my boyfriend is a dog. I don't know why I'm marrying him. And all the women supported her and sang, yes, your husband's a dog. Now what are they saying? This is a different way of dealing with the problem of power in the marriage. Because often in traditional situations, the woman is made to be lower than the man. So now the Zulu allow the woman to remind the man that she mustn't be treated badly. And already she can see I'm a dog. So all the women support her. It's a feminist statement. It's a feminist statement saying women mustn't be abused in marriage. So they sing it out, you see. Now this is dealt with in a different way in a Christian marriage. In a Christian marriage, the woman is given a role and the man is given a role, and he has to swear in front of God that he will look after her, he will do this, he will do that, he will do this, you see. And then she says, yes, I will do this, and I will. So it's a different way of saying the same thing. Instead of having God as a witness, you have a community that's witnessing, saying, yes, okay, you must look after your wife, we're watching, because you're a dog. So it's just a different way to say the same thing, which is to help the two people, to help them in their relationships, to help them in their marriage. And then slowly she started to sing songs which are more positive about me as the day goes on. And in the end of the day, she loves me and she wants to be with me, and she sings those songs and the people dance. And a lot of the women, she gets asked. She gets asked by a man who represents me, do you take this man to be your husband? And she doesn't reply. And when he asks her 3 times, and then in the 3rd time, she puts the knife in the air, like this. She raises up the knife, which means yes. And what that means is that she's cutting all her ties with her family. She's now moving to my family. And it's a happy and a sad time. And some of the women are crying, and some of the women are clapping, because they know the feeling of having to leave your family to go to another family. And in Zulu society, it's quite a strong cut. And what that does, now I got married in the Zulu tradition, and it taught me something about my own relationship with my wife, which I never had in my other marriage. You see, it's very important, because the other marriage that I had was very symbolic and it was very mystical. But my African marriage actually pointed out things in our relationship that I didn't think about before. you see, and made me aware of certain problems that might happen in the marriage. And that's why you start to see that all the different cultures only have a little bit of an answer. No culture has got the complete answer. And the more cultures you know, the bigger you understand the problem, because they all got a different way of looking at it. So it's through that way, I believe, and the world will be coming together slowly on that basis, because the Japanese have got something to say, and the Chinese have got something to say, and the Iran people have got something to say. Everybody's got something to say about the human experience.
Yeah, and I think if we are here together, it's maybe because I've been there, and when people meet different cultures, they have different view of things, and
Yes.
That's maybe why we try to have this interview with
Yes,
you.
that's very important, is to get different view, to see a different view of things. And a culture is like a camera, a lens. It's a different lens. So if I want to look at this thing this way, I can see it that way, or I could put it down, take another one, and look at it this way. That's all a culture is. Hello? It's you? No. Yes. Thank you.
Can you take some photo?
Yes. Who is this? Gilles?
No, this is not a well-known artist. He's a friend of mine who does dance. If you want, you can meet him tonight after you've shown his concert.
Thank you.
On behalf of all the group. Thank you. Excuse me. Yeah, this is Iranian. He's Iranian.
Thank you. That's wonderful. What does it mean? Traduisez après.
Comment ça marche?
Yeah, that's what no, but please have your tea while it's warm.
Okay.
Excuse-moi. Tu veux que je te... Vas-y, je vais te prendre un peu dessus. Tu vas à côté de lui.
Bon, on est pas être dessus aussi.
Allez, vas-y.
Monsieur le trac en anglais. Un monsieur. Ça se dit monsieur le trac en anglais.
Mettez le flash. Là. Non, devant. C'est un sourire. Allez, souris. C'est bon.